This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman and Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis. Our 11 Alive anchor, our girl Maria Martin, she will be back next week. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On NFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And the Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we don't talk about Caleb McGarry enough. Okay, we will. And can they actually be the best, or is that even necessary for true success? We'll download on that. And yes, 7 goes down, so 18 has entered the chat early. We'll explain, but first, let's talk about it, because this is the day that Aaron Freeman has been waiting for, that Jarvis Davis has been waiting for. It is the start of training camp, where we get one step closer to putting the pads on and seeing what these guys really have to bring to the table after, oh my God, conjecture about it ad nauseum. So yeah, training camp officially underway today. Jarvis, we had the good privilege, Aaron and I, to have both you and Maria out there in Flowery Branch. So I want to start with you. Real talk. You were out there. Well, what can we really glean, if anything, from the first day of practice?
I mean, you can confirm that Jalen Walker is really good. I saw him going one-on-ones against a guard, and the guard you just saw him kind of like, hey, man, the man's pretty quick. He did one of those numbers as soon as the balls were snapped. So, yeah, it's stuff like that you can see to kind of confirm, okay, you understand why the Falcons drafted him. I know got a good chance to kind of look at him when he was coming out of Georgia, but it's something just to see it again. It's just like, oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he's going to be really good. And so when you think about it from that standpoint, you start looking at certain guys, and then Michael Penix threw a beautiful ball to Darnell Mooney. And, of course, Darnell Mooney hit the ground. Nigga kind of popped out a little bit. But, hey, the throw was absolutely amazing. So, yeah, that type of stuff, just confirming pretty much what you already know. I think that's the kind of the beauty of being out there first day of practice and kind of saying, okay, all right, I like what I see right here.
And I love what you just called out, Jarvis, because to me, the most important thing about what you just said is the accuracy with which Michael Penix Jr. threw the ball. As far as Darnell Mooney not quite bringing it in, that'll come with time, reps, getting that chemistry together and the timing together. But I'm just encouraged that you liked what you saw. And I know you're in your happy place whenever a pass rusher shows you even a little bit of what you think he's capable of doing. But Aaron, when you hear about the returns from the first day of camp, it is still the first day at the end of the day. But what makes you smile about this? Finally, we're here.
Yeah, we're talking about practice, right? Practice, not the game.
Here we go.
It's fun. I say that just because I'm me, you know me. But it is fun to get practice, like real practice, like not the OTA practice where it's just like no one's touching each other. Everybody's on their tiptoes doing the thing. And what Jarvis is talking about, you actually see a little bit of game speed, right? You see guys out there running around, running routes, throwing the football like it's, a simulated game. So it's real practice. So at that point, and then when we get to the games, then we can complain about not seeing those guys play in the games in preseason, but then we'll get to that later. So I think for the most part, when you get to this stage, it is nice to sort of day one, it sets the expectations. You get to see these guys for real. You're seeing Kyle Pitts, going off and whatnot, and you're going, okay, are we doing this? We're doing this again. It's all about Kyle Pitts. We're doing this. Okay, I'm here for it.
Michael Penix made it about Kyle Pitts. He made it about Kyle Pitts.
I'm just here for Kyle. We know Kyle Pitts is probably not going to be an Atlanta Falcon for that much longer. So it's just like, hey, whatever we get out of Kyle Pitts, I'm just going to appreciate it. It's he's aging like a fine wine, all that sort of stuff. So I'm here for
it.
Can I just say this real quick, T?
Yeah.
So, like Kyle Pitts was talking about the practice, and the one thing that is probably for all you football nerds, you probably don't care about this type of stuff, but just kind of hear him talk. Like you just kind of seem like there's a sense of calmness about Kyle, like coming into this season, and I think that with him having a child and being a father now, like all jokes aside, I really feel like seems like there's some growth there with him just being around as far as talking to the media. Because I remember when he first came in, he was a little timid, and then of course I know he said that he doesn't really pay attention to all the outside noise, but he's human. He did mention that. So I think that those are some of the things that you kind of pay attention to as he's acknowledging those things, but he's saying, hey, here's where I am mentally as far as coming to the season. And I think that, as soon as Michael Penix, before he started talking at his press conference, he was like, hey, man, did y'all see how I got the ball to Kyle today? It's going to be a lot more than that. I was like, oh, my gosh. Ooh, got a little excited there. I was just like, hey, man, don't be doing that to the folks, man, because you know how people feel about Kyle Pitts, man. It's kind of, and it's like, it's on both ends of the spectrum, right? There's no in between when it comes to Kyle. So, yeah.
No.
I think, him kind of having that mindset about Kyle and Kyle having his mindset kind of tweaked a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see what he does this year.
Yeah. I think that's funny you mentioned that, because in talking, and I'm making this point not to flex, I promise you this,
sure,
but to make the point of this. On my national show last night, he was the topic of conversation. I thought that was interesting because obviously we always talk about how frustrating it is when we're talking about the local team, that nationally the conversation always reverts to Kirk Cousins. Last night, it was actually refreshing that we had some conversation around Kyle Pitts and some conversation around Michael Penix Jr. and what will that connection point really be like. And the fact that, as Maria pointed out in her tweet last night, 6 quarterbacks in 5 years. So maybe 6 will be the charm. And maybe 2 straight years of the same offensive coordinator that kind of understands what he has in front of him. Maybe that'll be the charm. But I felt like it was refreshing to actually have a conversation on a national level, not about Kirk Cousins and what this team can do, especially because Jarvis, Aaron, we were also talking about it. I know we'll talk about it in the show a little bit later, what offense can be a top 10 offense. And I use the Falcons as my honorable mention because I legit said, to this point, if they can figure out how to unlock certain talent, then it's a no-brainer that they can indeed be a top 10 offense this coming season. So Bijan Robinson, speaking of what that top 10 offense might look like this year versus what it looked like last year. Well, last year he had 365 touches, and that was, of course, the first year under offense coordinator Zach Robinson. So in his opening presser to start training camp, of course, Wednesday, Robinson was asked if he was comfortable with that amount. His response was centered around doing whatever it takes to get the win, and that's what you would expect from Bijan. But Aaron, when you think about that, I mean, are you concerned that Zach Robinson might lean in or use Bijan a little too much?
Well, there is a little concern. It's not something that is at the front of my mind because I'm like, the more Bijan, the better. It's just like let this man walk on water and all that stuff. But there is a part of you that thinks back to the offense that Zach Robinson came from in LA, and you look at how they utilized Todd Gurley, and like that offense was like Todd Gurley played like 99% of the snaps, and then Todd Gurley had the knee issues in college, but that kind of exacerbated those issues in the pro, and you kind of saw after a really, really strong start to his career, it kind of it dipped off, and by the time he got to Atlanta, he was not the same player that he had been at the beginning of his career. And basically his overusage, you could argue, contributed majorly to that. Now, Bijan doesn't have the injury history that Todd Gurley has, so it's less of a concern coming into the NFL. So in theory, he should have, that shouldn't be as big an issue if he gets a couple of seasons where he's getting 300 plus touches. But it is one of those things, because of how good Bijan Robinson is, that, it's just very easy to just like, hey, he can catch, he can block, he can run. Why are we putting Tyler Algier in the game? As good as Tyler Algier is, he's not better than Bijan Robinson. And so go with your hot hand. That's the sort of bread and butter of your offense. That's the guy that every defensive coordinator and defense is gearing up to stop. And so it'd be very easy for Zach Robinson and this coaching staff to just basically say, just keep feeding my guy, put him in every single snap. So there is some concern that you can go too far down that rabbit hole, and that can lead to problems down the road. But at the same time, as we sit here right now, it's just like, yeah, give him the football and let's see him do his incredible things.
Yeah, and Aaron, you can't help but think that would be the way to go, because not only do you have a rookie QB, and I'm saying rookie because 3 games, you might as well call him an extended rookie, in Michael Penix Jr., but you also know that it could go the Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley way as far as health, availability, and mobility, but it could also go the Christian McCaffrey way. And you have to be concerned about trying to find that balance, or Jarvis making sure, Zach Robinson has to make sure that he finds that balance, especially because he is one of those backs that you can use. Yes, you can run him hard, but you also will probably use him here and there, maybe more check down than anything. But I mean, he is a pass catcher out of the backfield, and he loves to block. So you do want to watch how much you utilize him, so that if it comes down to it, or when it comes down to, we'll be optimistic, when you need him come January, you'll have him, and you'll have the fullest, healthiest version of 7.
Yeah, the fullest, healthiest version of Bijan Robinson is vital to this offense, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but as far as being a top 10 offense, 7 has to be healthy. Like, that's the only way it's going to happen. So I think, and I even asked Raheem Morris about this earlier when I asked him about, are you going to put a governor on Bijan, because, he had 365 touches last year. That's quite a bit. He's not the biggest guy in the world, and I was like, not necessarily a governor, but, hey, man, got Tyler Algiers here too, looking for another running back that could potentially, help carry the load as well. So I think that, I don't think there's going to be a set number of touches that they're going to try to limit him to, but I do believe that they want 25 to be ready and willing to go. And I know Aaron doesn't want to hear that. I can see your brain working right now, Aaron.
No, I love Tyler out here. I'm just saying, like, when you see another human being walk on water, it's like, hey, what about that guy walking on water over there? As good as the tank and bulldozer of a player that Tyler Algier is, as impressive. I enjoy watching Tyler Algier. Don't get me wrong. I love watching him play football. But at the same time, someone's walking on water. It's like, hey, what's going on over there?
Hey, look, if you turn water to wine, why we going over to Peter?
Right. What are we doing?
So, but all in all, though, I think they're going to try to make sure that Tyler is involved in this offense, and not necessarily just as giving him a blow. Let me say that. I think there's going to be, hey, we're going to figure out a way to get you to rock, especially because I think ideally, here's how I feel games should go. You kill him with Bijan in the beginning, and shoot, as soon as you get that lead and you're trying to milk that doggone clock, bring 25 in there just to pound they behinds all the way until the clock says 0. Because we know Falcons have had issues in these past few years as far as closing out games because, not necessarily last year, but before that run game was a little suspect. So I think right now it's a matter of making sure you understand what you're working with, which is, walking on water. That's what you're working with. Blue magic. Yes, we got to get it, but let's make sure we kind of temper it as we go along. And then if there's a certain game where his dude is just fire hot and we got to keep him rolling, keep him in. But it can't be the plan going into the game week in and a week out basis.
Yeah, and I think you have too much talent in your passing game to warrant that. I can see it maybe in the first couple of weeks. We talked about the fact that we all have to be a little bit patient with this team because they have a gauntlet of a schedule, and Michael Penix Jr. is essentially a rookie. So we have to kind of give a little bit of grace in that regard. But on the same token, we understand that it is what it is, and you're going to need to have Bijan Robinson be effective often, but also early. And again, you kind of hope that he lands in that space again, because 345 touches, not a bad. I mean, that's not bad. That's actually the same amount of usage that the Philadelphia Eagles had with Saquon Barkley. Now, granted, it yielded better results as far as yardage and touchdowns, but your hope is that a third year with Bijan Robinson will get him to that level as well, right? So ultimately speaking, if you're going to use him, I think we're just all saying err on the side of caution. Hopefully you'll get enough of a lead in advance and your defense will keep giving you the ball back to allow you to be able to ground it out with a Tyler Algier. So when it does come to it, come down to it, whether it's that first week of the postseason or whether it's, God forbid, you have 15, 16, and 17, and you've got to rely on those games to kind of close out and get the NFC South title, then you want to be able to say, yeah, we've got a guy in our unicorn, probably the truest of the unicorns on this squad, who can actually make something. Oh, was it? Oh, I not meant. Sorry, KP. Sorry, KP. I was just referring to. Okay, so anyway, when we come back, there must be this other guy that we'll call at least a half unicorn, but because he's not a full unicorn, the 76 not get talked about enough. We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Our episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board early, and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and oh my God, all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. So this year, me, maybe Jarvis, maybe Aaron, maybe Maria, maybe even Tori from the Monday show, we're going to all play some Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. If you've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and I have in the past, and you love it, it's because it's smooth on draft day. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, get this, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. So stay tuned and get started creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/lockedon NFL. Stay tuned and get started creating or joining a football league at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. So guys, we often around this show give a lot of love to one Chris Lindstrom, and rightfully so. I mean, Chris Lindstrom is redefining what that OG position means, right? But I think it's because he's so well-rounded. Like, you trust what he'll be able to do, whether in pass protection or run protection. However, Zach Robinson mentioned how all he was of a block Caleb McGarry made against the Saints last season. So clearly the OC has some love, some respect, some appreciation for 76, just as he does for 67. That said, Aaron, do you feel that maybe we minimize McGarry's talent in run pro because of his pass pro struggles?
Yes, I think the answer to your question, T, yes, I think we do that. I don't personally, but I know the collective whole of Falcons fandom and media and whatnot, because you heard it in his post-practice presser. Everybody was asking him about, well, what are you going to do differently with now that you're protecting Michael Penix's blind side? It's like Caleb McGarry's like, nothing. The job is the same. It doesn't matter who's the quarterback.
Don't give up a sack.
Not give up a sack. Like, nothing changes. My footwork doesn't change. My hands don't change. The pass rushers don't change. It's just the quarterback that changes. You need to, if you want to ask me about protecting his blind side, that's a Michael Penix question. That's not a Caleb McGarry question. And so I do think that leads to, we don't appreciate Caleb McGarry's ability to throw people out the club. I talked about this at the end of last season, where when you talk about who's the bouncer on this offensive line, who sets the identity, who is that embodiment of the guy, of that physicality up front, it's Caleb McGarry. He's the bouncer at the club. It's like, hey, you're a club owner. You go, hey, Caleb, someone's making trouble in my club. I need you to throw him out the club. And he's like, right on it, boss. And he's going to throw somebody out the club. And that's basically what Bijan is relating to what Caleb McGarry adds to this offense. And when you look at the strength of this offensive line in the run game, it's that combination of Chris Lindstrom and Caleb McGarry now going into year 7 together, and sort of that sort of cohesion that you have, where that's the strength of your offense. And I think you saw last year with Caleb McGarry dealing with some of that knee injury that he had early in the season, you didn't quite see the same level of dominance in the run game that we have seen in the previous times. And now that he's healthy, had a off-season, cleanup surgery on his ankle, and basically said this is the healthy he's felt in a long time in terms of his joints. You're hoping to see more of that dominance moving forward in terms of the run game. And so when he can be that dominant presence in the run game, it lets you, or at least some of us, not all of us, but at least me, it lets you forgive a little bit of some of the breakdowns about it. Like, some of those are going to come. Like, that comes with the territory of Caleb McGarry. We know what he is as a dominant run blocker, and sometimes there can be issues when it comes to pass protection. But for the most part, and the thing that gets underrated with Caleb McGarry, that only shows up a handful of games each year, right? We saw it last year against your favorite team in week 1. But like, that to me wasn't really on Caleb McGarry. That was just like, what are we doing here, guys? Like, why were we putting that man on an island?
Off a game plan, by the way.
The best pass rusher.
Right. Like, there it is.
That's not to me. That wasn't a Caleb McGarry issue. That was like, you didn't understand your personnel. Indeed. And understanding what you should have done going into that game. So I think that leads to a lot of, again, because the way we talk about offensive linemen, right? If you mess up one time, you're the worst person on the planet and you need to get out of here, right?
Yep.
And that's just the nature of the position. And we talked about that last week when we were talking with Tori about the top 100 and evaluating offensive linemen, and offensive line don't get enough credit in terms of being valued because of the degree of difficulty of their job. And so I think when it comes to Caleb McGarry, he doesn't get appreciated for the things that he does really well. And people tend to focus on the things that he may not do nearly at that same high level. But he is, a big part of what this team and what this offensive line can do moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And the good thing too is Free and Jarvis, we heard from Raheem Morris this morning, and he said, hey, Caleb McGarry is essentially a good go health-wise. Now, of course, with some modifications along with some of the other players, but ultimately speaking, he's back in doing reps with the first team, which is a positive sign at this point in his recovery. But yeah, I think it's one of those where, hey, Jarvis, everybody is not going to be Chris Lindstrom. I mean, Chris Lindstrom is borderline a generational talent at his position that we're going to be talking about wearing a gold jacket at some point down the road, right? So you kind of can't compare him to the guy next to him or even the guy on the left side, because one thing about Jake Matthews, he may not necessarily be a gold jacket ring Matthews like some of his family members, but the consistency and just being there, his availability has always been a good look. So maybe because Caleb McGarry gets caught up in the shuffle of those two guys, and what they were able to do, what they've been able to do at their positions, whether it's consistency, excellence, or all of the above, maybe Caleb McGarry gets lost in the shuffle for those reasons as well. Not so much about him, but about what the others are doing. And also to Aaron's point about how Zach Robinson didn't quite understand, especially in the beginning of last season, how to utilize him and put him in positions to succeed.
Yeah, I think you bring up an interesting point when you talk about Jake Matthews, because people want guys to be that drafted top 10, 6 overall pick when he was brought in. They want him to be amazing. I want him to be a Hall of Famer. But oh my gosh, when it comes to knowing exactly what you're going to get on a weekly basis, and he's going to be there on a weekly basis, Jake Matthews is that. And to be honest with you, at this point, I'm okay with what Caleb McGarry brings to the table. And I think he does get a bad rap because, he was not that good in pass pro when he first came into the league. And I feel like he's gotten better for sure. Is it where you think that a first round drafted tackle, what you want them to be? I don't know. That's a conversation we can have. But when you talk about what he does in the run game, this dude is damn near elite. Excuse me, French. Yeah. This dude is up there. He's up there. And I think that Bijan laid it out perfectly. And I'm glad he did, because, when you walk on water and turn water to wine, people are going to believe what you say. They're going to take it as truth. You know what I'm saying? It's hard truth right there. When you're talking about bouncing the guy off the doggone turf against the New Orleans Saints, that's the type of stuff that you want. You want those type of guys. I mean, I even think back to some of the old guards like a Randall McDaniel, who used to play for the Vikings, had that weird stance and everything. I was just like, he wasn't the greatest guard at that time, but he was just one of those nasty dudes that you just know that you have to look out for. If he come pulling around that corner, that's going to be a guy you need to look out for. And I think that, that Saints defender that Bijan didn't mention, he's going to be looking out for 76. And then I thought it was so funny because Caleb was asked about the story that Bijan told. He was just like, I don't necessarily remember the play, but he said he loves, being in a situation where, hey, you were in my gap. So, yeah, I'm gonna put you on the ground. I'm gonna move you out my way so my running back can get where he needs to be. And he said he just absolutely loves watching Bijan's butt, fly past him. You know what I'm saying? He said he knows he's done his job, and he's just a very interesting cat, like from Fife, Washington. Boy, what the heck is Fife, Washington?
Say what?
Yes, absolutely. And Michael Penix even talked about him killing bears and stuff. He's like, yeah, I don't know if I would kill some bears with. I was like, killing bears? What is going on? So yeah, man, he's just a country boy, out here making some good money. He's gonna retire at some point and walk on into the sunset. But know this, Falcons fans, the man is a hell of a blocker, and you have to give him credit for that. And he's doing it in the NFL. So it ain't about competition and all that stuff. So yeah, I think he does get a bad rap because of the shortcomings in the pass game that he's had.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to say about that, since you brought up the story about the Bears, Jarvis, I said maybe low key, it looks a little different. It's not maybe the swaggy dog that we look for. Because sometimes when we talk about who's got that dog in him, it's also kind of low key who's got that swag. Caleb McGary is a scary individual. Like if you've ever spoken to him in person, I remember him coming in as a rookie, and Chris Lindstrom, very even keeled, stood up there for about 10 minutes answering all of my questions, because you guys know how I feel about the O-linemen. I think they're cerebral, and I think they are the brains of the operation. So we were talking about all sorts of intricacies of what he does with his job. Caleb McGary was more like, I don't really want to talk to any of you people. I just want to get on the field and just bust things up in the trenches.
That's exactly how he is.
So I love it. Guys, maybe when you think about that Bear story, maybe that's another area where we don't give him enough credit. The fact that his edge, his swag, his dog may not look maybe the same as how we normally define it, but I think Ro has a little bit of edge.
Yeah. What's the mystical line where he's like, if you see me in a fight with a bear, help the bear? Like that's bear. Yeah. So, like I feel like when you I love it. Like if you're sitting there going like, okay, which Atlanta Falcon player would if I'm in a dark alley and I'm being accosted by a bear or any person or anything like that, who's the person I want having my back more than anybody else? I think Caleb McGarry's at the top of that list, or in terms of like, I know I'm gonna be fine. Like, and again, you don't think about it in that way in the sense of, because we typically think of offensive pass protection, right? Again, like you think about Jake Matthews as this gets to the core of what we're talking about. But in terms of just like, go take care of this problem, Caleb, again, throw that guy out the club. Like he's the guy that is going to be able to do that.
I like that analogy, by the way.
Yes. Throwing out the club. I used to, back in my my heathen days, I used to partake in the security stuff.
What do you mean your heathen days?
I mean, that was part of it. It was towards the end. Towards the end of my heathen days.
I'm still at the club from time to time.
This is my BT period before today. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
My BT period in my life.
Clarify, because I don't consider me a heathen for going up at the club when I was just club Sunday.
So, it was the things that I used to partake in.
Oh, okay. Just checking.
See, okay. I'm telling too much.
Aaron, we have to clarify these things for our audience so they understand.
I'm just gonna let you guys
who we are.
I ain't in it, so
Okay, Bennett.
Tap it out. No, go ahead, Jarvis, because I do think that this is one area also where we don't show Caleb McGary enough love. And I do think that he is that guy that Chris Lindstrom feels confident that, hey, that guy next to me does have my back. He has the quarterback's back. He has the O-line's back. He has this team's back. And maybe we don't talk about that part of what he brings to the table. And intangible, but we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, the way that those guys play together and how much they know each other, like Aaron brought it up earlier, 7 years, like that's my guy. I've been playing next to him. No competitions, no weirdness, no nothing. Like no replacement coming in and position battles, none of that. It's just been those two together with Dwayne Leffert, and let's not forget about him as well. Like, hey, Dwayne Leffert has been one of those sneaky great assistants, what I'm saying, that has been developing for them to let a guy like Drew Dahlman walk out the door. Yep, we got Ryan Newsom. We know Dwayne been holding him down, got him gonna have him prepared, ready to step into that role. So when you think about all of those factors, I mean, like we need to give him a little bit more love. I feel, because he got a little bad rap early on, and I mean some of it was deserved, but I think now as he's become a vet, got the contract, and he's kind of looking to get another one. Sure. Hey man, this might be a reason for him to, really kind of see if he can take it to that next level and become one of the better pass protectors in NFL.
Yeah. And Aaron, this is especially for you. We love what we see in run protection from Caleb McGarry and from this O-line overall. But wouldn't it be nice, as Mr. Mitten said, to have a fullback every now and then that Bijan Robinson could run behind? I just had to make you smile before we go to our next segment. So can this Falcons, this particular group, actually be the best? Or if we're keeping it real, is that even necessary for true success? We'll unpack that in Next Up. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. What was one surprising thing that you might notice when you start tracking your spending? I bet you'll notice some more surprises when you start tracking that spending with Monarch. And think about a financial goal you've been meaning to get serious about. Monarch Money can help you to meet, if not exceed, that financial goal. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Ever looked at your spending and been surprised about how fast it adds up? Monarch can help you to figure it out. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. So Jarvis, Chris Lindstrom mentioned back in the spring that he wanted the Falcons to be the best offense in the NFL. That is a very, very tall order when you think about all of the offenses in the NFL, especially those that have paid so much attention to getting their passing game ramped up and kind of next level, but not impossible, because the Falcons we saw some strides in those last couple games last season with Michael Penix Jr. under the helm. That said, how do you see the Falcons making a jump where we're talking about them being the number one offense in the NFL after this season?
I'm kind of intrigued by the guy who said it. Chris. Yes. He has to be the best guard in the league. Like, make no doubt about it, right? Like, you look at the PFF rankings from last year. Obviously, that can be true, right? You can make a good case for that. So for me, I stand on him continuing to be great. Like, he has to be great because he's the great offensive line on their staff. Like, we talked about what guys' roles are, what our expectations are. I expect, Caleb McGarry to be great in the run game. And average, to above average in the pass pro, right? I expect Jake Matthews to continue to be the consistent guy and be there and put permanent marker that he's going to be in that starting left tackle spot for the entire season. I expect Matthew Bergeron to continue to kind of be the guy and waiting to be that doggish, nasty-ish type left guard that the Falcons drafted him to be. So for me, I think that this offensive line, them staying healthy is the key for them to, be in that upper echelon of offense, or even the best offense in the league. And I was asking Michael Penix about Bijan and how, his role in this offense and what it could be and kind of how important it is. He was just like, and it's so crazy. Every time I ask Michael Penix about Bijan Robinson, he just lights up like a kid at Christmas, man. He's just like, he's vital to me. He's vital to everyone else. Like, because I can turn around and hand it off to him. And he said, as far as the play action game, he said he's so important to what we do. So I think this offensive line continue to be healthy and continue to progress, and Chris Lindstrom being great, Caleb McGarry doing what he does, and Jake Matthews and Matthew Bergeron and Ryan Newsel. Not let's not call his name at all during the games. Don't let the play-by-play guy mention his name. I think this offense has a chance to roll.
Yeah, and it's a tall order, but not necessarily a tall order by Jarvis's standards, because remember, Jarvis's standard is what? Where do we land, Jarvis? Are we at 27 or 28 points a game this season?
After my conversations today, we're at 28 now.
Okay,
so we're at 28.
Keep creeping up. Okay,
it's creeping up. Yeah,
we're going to be at what, 32 by week 1?
Exactly, Aaron. Do you see him creeping up, Aaron?
Look, when they put
calling that out, my guy.
I asked Ra, once they put the pads on Tuesday, that's official. That's breaking news, whatever. When they put the pads on Tuesday, it might be 30. I don't know. It might be 30.
Bless his heart, Aaron, but we're just going to let him have that, because in actuality, he's not wrong, because most of the teams that landed in the top 5 hovered at 28 or above. So definitely, Jarvis, you're not wrong about that. And here's the thing, Free, those 5 teams going by offensive points per game, as I mentioned, included at number 5, the Lions. Bills came in at number 4, Ravens 3, Bucks 2, Commanders 1. Do we see a consistent line there? Yeah, we see a consistent line. Every one of those teams made the playoffs, and we're a step away, especially when we look at the Ravens, a step away from even going to the Super Bowl. So there is something to be said about at least being a top 5. But before I go there, let me ask you, what do you see that it would take for this Falcons offense to actually make the jump to being the best in the league?
Well, I think Jarvis mentioned one thing, which is continuity on the offensive line. The Falcons have had 3 seasons in the last 30 years where they had the same 5 starting every game. That was 1998, 2012, and 2016. And those 3 years are the 3 years where, if you go back and you look at like points in yards, those were the 3 years where this offense was at its best, when they were like top 5 in points and like top 10 in yards those seasons. So you see that how important offensive line continuity is for this team's historic success, that their 3 best offenses that you can think of in the last 30 years, which was 98, 2012, and 2016, all had continuity up front. So I think Jarvis nailed it with that. Like, if they can stay healthy, that's going to be huge and allow the Ryan Newsels and the Caleb McGarrys and all those guys to put their best foot forward this upcoming season. But I think it's also, the run game, that's part of it. Michael Penix hitting the ground running this upcoming season. And rather than him going through, us tempering our expectations for a rookie quarterback, he's looking like Jaden Daniels was looking like a rookie quarterback at the beginning of the season, when that Washington team was putting up a lot of points at the beginning of the year. And so looking like a rookie beyond his years. You have the passing game. You have the weapons. We talked about Kyle Pitts earlier. If you already know what you have in Drake London, you already know what you have in Darnell Mooney, you know what you have in Bijan Robinson, you got a big 3. And you get a big 4. And if you can get a big 4, that's going to really make it hard on opposing defensive coordinators, because it's like, now we can't, we try to stack the box to stop Bijan Robinson. Now they have 3 weapons that can beat us deep in terms of terrorizing our defense. And that's almost no defense in the NFL can deal with 3 weapons. You saw that with the 2012 Falcons offense, where it was Tony, it was Roddy, it was Julio. And it was just basically like Matt Ryan could just basically say, okay, well, they're bracketing Julio, and maybe the other corner can keep Roddy on lock. Well, this week I'm going to Tony. And then if they had a guy that can keep Tony on lock, it's like, well, I'm going to Roddy this week. And it's like, and then some team would come along and be like, we're not going to bracket Julio Jones. Why would we bracket Julio Jones? And then they would realize, the errors of their ways in terms of not doubling him in those games. And so it's, we talked about this I think following that week 5 Thursday night game, where the Falcons offense exploded that week. And we were talking about it, how being that pick your poison type of game where everybody was getting the ball, Algier, Bijan, Kyle, Drake, Darnell, all those guys. And if you can feed all those weapons, and we're sitting there going like, it doesn't matter who's in the game, everybody's eating. That to me is the path to this offense being one of the best in the league.
Indeed. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right with that last statement, Free. If Zach Robinson can figure out, and I do say this complimentary to Kyle Pitts, if he figures out how to have everybody eat, and different players eat in different games, then you know that you're going to have the potential to have a top offense. But Jarvis, I say this, if they're not the best offense, you heard me mention the top 5 from 2024, and the top 10 isn't shabby either, because you have teams with the likes of the Chiefs and the Eagles who landed in that top 10 as well. And we know that those are your Super Bowl participants. So that said, if the Falcons aren't number 1, does top 5 or even top 10, in your opinion, get them into the postseason?
Yes, top 10. Top 10 tells me if you're a top 10 offense in scoring, that means that the offense is your best group. And when you think about all of the draft capital that has been put on the offensive side of the football, you doggone right, it better be your best part. It better be leading your team. It better be the best unit on your team. So I think that, all we have to say, like we mentioned earlier, with the health of the offensive line, Michael Penix progressing and being the guy who we think he can be in his first full year as a starter. Absolutely. Yes, I think this is one of those situations where the Falcons offense needs to be in that top 10. Just given off of how Terry Fontenot has drafted in these past few years since he's been the general manager. So, yeah, I think we're at the expectation level, not necessarily, this is what this could be. No, I expect them to be in that top 10 because that's the only way they're going to get to the playoffs. I don't see this defense getting good to great enough to be able to give them working with short fields and sack fumbles and pick sixes and all that stuff. Like, I don't see that happening, in this particular season. So there are just too many young assets that they have over there that they are hoping to produce in their first year in this league. So yeah, top 10 is, if they get in that top 10, that's exactly where they need to be.
How do you feel about that, Free, as far as not necessarily this team needing to be the number 1 offense, but can top 10 or even top 5? So you, in your opinion, is that kind of like a precursor to saying, hey, that's probably a playoff team?
Yeah, I think it does. You look at last year's top 10 offenses, all of them were playoff teams except for one. That was the Cincinnati Bengals.
And they almost got there with the push in the season, right?
And their defense was terrible. And it's like basically when you have that, like when you have to balance out in order to not make the playoffs with a top 10 offense. Is basically the point I'm trying to make, is like you have to balance out a top 10, or I think it's the 6th best offense with like a bottom 3 defense. And I know we all hope that we are not seeing that level of defense anymore in Atlanta, and the Falcons are banking on that not being the case. And that speaks to what Jarvis is saying. If they're just decent, like they don't have to be great on that side of the ball. But as Jarvis is saying, like that's not a unit. And you heard it from Jeff Ulbrich, right? He when they drafted Jalen Walker and James Pierce, and he was basically saying, we plan to play with leads. Like we expect to play with leads. Like he's basically telling you, look, I'm here to complement what the offense is doing. I'm not here to be the engine of this team's success from a defensive standpoint. So as Jarvis said, like you've invested all these resources on the offensive side of the ball. It's got to pay off. We have been waiting since, the heyday of Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley and all those guys to get back to what Atlanta football. We complained about it at the time. It's like, man, this offense is so good and this defense is always terrible. And it's like, we don't want to go back to that. But at the same time, we do kind of miss the top 10 offense, that old reliable of like top 10 scoring a lot of points, and then we'll figure out the defense, and hopefully they're on that track. But as Jarvis said, like that's not going to happen this year, right? It's like we're building that over time with some of these young pieces as they grow, but we do expect that offense to get back on track and be that top 10 unit that was such a regular thing through that, decade plus that Matt Ryan was here.
That's true. Yeah. You want to talk glory days? That's glory days when no matter what that other team is doing, you let loose that Falcons offense and they're in every single game. Jarvis, one thing that you mentioned that I wanted to point out real quick, because we actually haven't talked about him in quite a while, but we know how vital Lindstrom's role is to this O-line, even McGary's and Matthews' roles. We've talked about that, but you subtly mentioned Matthew Bergeron. What about the importance of Bergeron taking that leap and what he needs to do to help make this Falcons offense one of the top offenses this season?
I was just having a conversation during practice with another member of the media, and I was talking about how Bergeron, he got a little mean streak in him, a little nastiness. You get into a fight at OTAs, you got a little something going on upstairs. So it might be a little weirdness, some good weird, for football, when it comes to that type of stuff. So I think for him is continue to grow into that, right? Like I would promote that. I'm not saying, hey man, go conjure it up and start fights with your teammates. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that type of mentality, mindset, when the lights are on Sundays at 1:00, yeah, go do that. Go move that mofo out your way. Like, if he's in your gap.
You got to remember, Bergeron's a hockey player. He started playing hockey before he moved to football. So he has that hockey player mentality when it comes to football.
And I've never heard of a hockey player being called soft. Never.
Yeah.
Not everybody that makes it to the NHL. I've never heard anyone being referred to as soft. You're like, oh yeah, that player is soft. Nah, you don't hear about that in the NHL. So yeah, there's a different. Those dudes are built different. So yeah, I think he has that type of mindset. And all I'm doing, if I'm Dwayne Leffert, I'm just watering that bad boy. I'm just watering it. Yep, keep on. Mm-hmm. Yep, put some Miracle Grow up in that thing and just keep going.
Free. My favorite comment so far from our audience this morning. Bergeron is a young crash out. Love it.
That's hilarious.
CJ Hill co-sign on that. Yeah, Free. We need that dude to crash out 17 times at a minimum this coming season.
Absolutely. We talk about Caleb McGarry being the bouncer on the right side. Go throw some, go help him throw some people out the club on the left side,
Exactly. Yeah, do that. Yeah, earn your keep on both sides when it comes to being a little edgy and letting folks know what's going down. Speaking of, 7 kind of went down today, and Lord help us, that means 18's entered the chat again. We'll explain next. Well, guys, we knew it was going to happen. I just don't think we figured it would happen this soon, and certainly didn't want it to happen to one of our homegrowns, Justin Fields. He was carted off the practice field this morning with a toe injury on his right foot now. He went down, sat on the ground briefly, limped off the field with the assistance of a trainer. That said, multiple sources have said that he was pulled out of practice, quote, out of an abundance of caution. And let's just be honest. Can you blame the New York Jets for pulling him out of practice off that toe injury due to an abundance of caution? Because we know their depth chart ain't really deep at the QB position. So that said, obviously, anytime we hear that a quarterback or a QB1 goes down this entire training camp, it's going to raise an eyebrow and make us think, does that mean that the path to departure for 18 has begun? So Free, Kirk Cousins has entered the chat early.
I feel like this is Tyrod Taylor disrespect to you on your part, but I'm gonna let that slide. I disrespected Jalen Hurts last week. I'm gonna let it's fine. We're even now. No, but it was funny because it was just like I'm not gonna mention any names in a so-called group chat, but people were like, and it's like this is the classic case early at this time in the calendar where you get a little nugget of information and you're like, let's Kirk. We start a GoFundMe, get that first class ticket to New York. Let's get that first 4 months of rent paid in Manhattan or whatever. And it's just like, calm down, guys. Like 30 minutes later, it's like someone stepped on his toe. He'll be fine. And so it's one of those
dislocated
things.
Free.
Yeah, pop that bad boy back in, and he'll be
fine. Out there,
so it's going to be. This is going to be the situation every single day where we get a situation like this. And T, you mentioned it, the abundance of caution. Like this is what happens during this time of year. The training staff is like, did you get a paper cut this morning? Okay, get the card out, guys. Like we gotta keep these guys safe because it's training camp. No one wants injuries, so everybody wants to be super safe. Like you break your pinky, they're gonna put you on a backboard, they're gonna put you in a neck brace, all that sort of thing. So I think when we see these injury reports, on the timeline, people need to just pump the brakes, wait, see what happens. Most of the time, sometimes it's going to be serious, but most of the time it's not going to be serious. But at the same time, I get it. everybody's, we're all, that GoFundMe money is in the bank. We're ready to pay for that plane ticket and that rent check for Kirk to be out of here. But I think we just have to wait a little bit on that front. But yes, this is going to be probably a daily occurrence. Anytime a starting quarterback gets a little nicked up at any point over next month, it's going to be, well, Kirk Cousins trade, here it comes, guys. And it's like, all right, guys, we'll see.
Oh no, oh my gosh, so I'm out here, you have conversations with different people from different outlets and stuff, and you just talking conversation, and all I hear is, hey, what's up? Have you heard? I'm like, no, what's up? Well, Kirk Cousins is might be getting a phone call. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, Justin Fields just got carted off the field and he's dead. So I think I'm just like, wait a minute, calm down, but seriously though, I think, hey, it's nothing wrong with speculation, baby. We still in that seat. And, I know we have stuff to talk about and good conversations to talk about what we see in practice and all that good stuff. I get that, but I think Kirk is in a space where he's settled to where he is. I know people don't want to hear that. No, like Free said, I know there are a lot of people who are willing to put some money down for that first class fight because Kirk not flying coach. Don't let it. And it's expensive to fly first class. I don't know if y'all notice or not, but I think there's just this little small instant helps you understand how quickly your situation can change. And I think that, we don't know the severity of it, but hey, they said the man, big toe, little toe, pinky toe got dislocated. Quarterbacks, last time I checked, they use their feet, so hey, he might be, so you never know. He might be tired of getting hurt. He played behind the Bears offensive line for most of his career. So, when you think about it from that standpoint, the man might need a little break. You know what I'm saying? Kirk is the breaking case of emergency for the entire league.
The entirety of the league.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Terry Fontenot just sitting there waiting. Just waiting on that phone to ring. I was being even more petty. I was like, man, Terry Fontenot ain't nowhere to be found in practice. I was like, he's on the phone right now on the computer making that phone call. I'm like, all right, let me see. I'm gonna give me a 4th round pick next year. Probably need me a little third, you know what I'm saying? Conditional third, pick, you know what I'm saying? Turn it to a 4th, you know what I'm saying? Me go ahead and get that right. And then calling the agent, like, hey man, I don't need you to block this stuff, man. Hey, we good, right? We good, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I promise you. And yeah, I know it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Because just like you said, injuries happen. And this is just a sign to say, get ready. Because more than likely, he might get a phone call. I would not be surprised at all. Because Jackson Dart, he's not looking good.
Yeah.
Russ is not all that great either. So, we just never know. You just never know.
Jameis disrespect. How dare you?
Jameis Winston at this point in his career is pure entertainment.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
He's a great follow on social media.
Absolutely. Yes, he's amazing.
And here's the thing. Yeah. Right. And a sidebar, and promise we'll get back to the Falcons, but we were talking about that last night. At this point, if you're the Giants, you're still scared because Russell Wilson could go down, which Jameis Winston, if he's your backup to Russell and he's like a pick six machine, but then Jackson Dart on his very first throw of his very first NFL training camp throws a pick six. That's a problematic QB room right there.
And T, look, this is what I love about training camp. Like the videos people drop out there, put out there. And I was guilty. I put one out there too, being a little petty. That's my get down from time to time. And people just, the overreaction to practice is just absolutely, it's just ridiculous at times. But I think that this is the fun part though. This is the fun part. Like we have these people out here competing. I made sure I asked Raheem Morris, like, hey man, when y'all putting these pads on, dude? Oh yeah, I think we're up Tuesday. I'm like, yep, I'll be here for that. And I will have my binoculars because I know y'all be trying to put us on the other end of the field so we can't see one-on-ones. I see y'all. I see what y'all be doing. Don't be trying to doggone get me. I'm gonna see it. I'm gonna see it. We're gonna talk about it too.
Yeah, we have binoculars. We can see things.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, absolutely. Jarvis is referring to his petty video that says, "I wonder if Kirk knows ... Would that be the petty reference?
Yes, that's the petty reference for today. Yes,
that's what I thought.
I'm no longer petty monger because I changed my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm walking. You know, I'm evolving as a man. You know what I'm saying?
However,
yeah, but every now and then it's still a little petty.
It just raises up and rises up in, pun intended.
Every now and then, T.
So to end on a high note, it is Drake London's birthday. And actually, you know what? Before I ask you about Drake London, real quick, I wanted to ask as well. Obviously, Darnell Mooney goes down with just a little bit of not a tweak really, but a little something. And then Chris Blair comes in. Obviously, he's right up there on the depth chart. But did you have any thoughts about them inserting Chris Blair in for Darnell Mooney? Did that indicate anything for you, or it's just like, okay, well, he's just kind of next up?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of a next up situation. And then Chris is always kind of floated around that practice squad borderline. Hey, you see, there's something there. Like he had some really good chemistry with Michael Penix Jr. Last year. So I think he's one of those guys where, all right, if a guy like Darnell Mooney goes down and Chris Blair is the first guy that they insert in, I don't have no problem with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever because I think he's a guy that has some potential. I just think there's a lot of guys in front of him that are a lot better. So, I don't have an issue with it. I don't think there's anything there as far as anything lingering. So, but I think, Blair being put in that situation does kind of tell you, how Ike Hilliard may feel about him and what he capable of.
Yeah. I would agree with that. You kind of know what you have when in your top four guys at the wide receiver position. Jamal Agnew is sort of that wide receiver 5 that's brought in to just return kicks and whatnot. And so you're trying to figure out, okay, what else do we have? What else do we have in Chris Blair and Casey Washington and, some of the guys that have been here and some of these undrafted free agents. And it makes sense given that Chris Blair has been here for a couple of years now, and does bring a little bit of that sort of vertical speed more so than some of the other guys in the room. So it makes sense for the Falcons to get him that opportunity just to, again, see what more he can do. Can he be sort of another guy that you can add to the mix in that wide receiver room?
Yeah, I would agree. And so we wish our guy Drake London a happy birthday. And here's the thing. Most of the time for birthdays, birthday is actually today. So yeah, Drake London is turning a grown man's 23.
Wow. My birthday is tomorrow on Friday, by the way.
Oh, good. So you know what? Let's pull it all in. Let's just bring it all home with the birthday. I mean, we're not singing for you, man. But
please don't. No, we don't.
No, thank you. Yeah. But we will definitely wish you pre-happy birthday wishes. So, Bree, then I start with you and ask you. We've got two opportunities to give both our dogs some love. So normally, I would say Drake would be the one receiving the gifts. But in this instance, what gift do we want Drake to give us free?
Triple crown, maybe a triple crown. Triple crown.
There it is. Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was literally thinking when I think about what I would want Drake London to be or do this year, that's what I want for him. I think that ultimately speaking, you should have it as it relates to yards, as it relates to touchdowns, as it relates to catches. I want to be having the same conversation, want him right in that conversation with a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson or all of the top tier guys. What about you, Jarvis? What is the gift you would want to receive from Drake London?
1,410, baby. Let's go. Okay. Yeah, just barely missed it last year with 9. Like, give me 1,400 and 10 tuds, man. Whew. I feel like this offense is going to be humming. Can I add like another gift that could potentially be a part of?
Yeah.
Can we get 2 wide receivers with 1,000 yards? Super close last year, even with the flugaziness that was Kirk Cousins.
Could we get 3? Could we get 3 wide receivers with 1,000?
Now you're talking
top. Who would the third wide receiver be, Mr. Free?
I heard a certain tight end was getting some work today with the wide receivers, and I was like,
that's right.
And then the more that guy gets some work with the wide receivers, going back to what T said earlier, get my boy Charlie Warner lined up in the backfield as a fullback. These are the gifts that keep on giving for me.
They are.
So.
Listen, if you're on the receiving end, you get to say exactly what it is that you want from getting gifts. All right, Jarvis, since it's your birthday tomorrow, what gift would you like these Falcons to give you for your birthday?
Oh, I need
like
a double
late gift. Like the gift doesn't have to come on your birthday, but for your birthday, what would you ask the Dirty Birds to give you?
10 and 8. I need one double digit sack guy, and I need one guy at 8. I need a 10 and 8. To give me a 10 and 8, and I'll be good. Give me a double digit sack guy. I don't care who it is. And an 8 sack guy. I need that. Yeah. Give me that. That's almost halfway to 40. So if you get me 40 sacks, that's 18 right there. Like, hey, everybody filling the gap. That's all I need.
What do you want Jarvis to get from the Birds for his birthday?
When he said 10 and 8, I was like, oh, that's a record prediction. So I was like, oh, so I get it with the sacks. That makes a little bit more sense because 10 and 8.
I thought he was talking about that too, and I was like 10 and 8. And then I said, winning the first playoff game. That's
yeah. It was like where's the 10 and 7 plus a playoff loss, or 9 and 8 plus a playoff? The math wasn't mathing for me, but for Jarvis, let's see. I hope Jarvis enjoys that first padded practice. That's what I'll say. He'll get all the James Pierce and Jalen Walker love that he can possibly get. If they can move up that practice a little bit, or no, you know what, Jarvis, you're going to get the padded practice. So that's not even really a gift for you. The gift for you would be able to get to see those guys play in the preseason, because that is certainly not something that is guaranteed to come to your way this year. So it's one of those things where it's like, can we get a couple of sacks from JW and JP in the preseason?
That's a good one.
I would accept that gift.
Yeah.
Be very happy.
Yeah. And then you can get that gift much earlier. You don't have to wait 6 months in order to cash in on that one. But I will give you one that I think you would appreciate or love to see 6 months from now. And that is, you'd love to see, and taking the postseason out, that MPX played 17 games. Because if he plays all 17,
give me that.
That's going to be a great look for this Atlanta Falcons offense and this team overall. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. Check out Maria Martin, host of Sports Extra on Sundays on 11 to Live. She'll be back with us next week. And you can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons and Sports Extra. See you next time.